Hey TYT, Nomi Const here. We have some breaking news, an exclusive actually, coming out of Maryland. You've been following with our reporting the governor's race in Maryland. It's a heated race to basically challenge Larry Hogan, who's a Republican governor. Democrats think they have a real opportunity to win back this seat in Maryland, which pretty much should be democratically controlled. Ben Jealous, who's a former Bernie Sanders surrogate, he is the former president of the NAACP. He is on the progressive side, endorsed by Our Revolution. All the progressive groups and many unions have been backing him. Well, he just announced today that he has chosen his lieutenant governor. Now, we're pretty much a year out. So this is unprecedented, and it's getting a lot of attention. Also, the choice is somebody that I'm familiar with from my time covering the DNC, and that is the former chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, Susan Turnbull. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. Susie, if I can call you.
You can call me Susie anytime you want. And Nomiki, it's great to be with you, and I'm excited to be able to share this morning with you. We just announced this morning, actually, that I am going to be running with Ben, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be part of this ticket.
How did this all transpire? How did you meet Ben?
Obviously, I've been involved in Maryland politics for several decades, and we had mutual friends, including Ben's campaign manager. He kept telling me, you need to meet Ben, you need to meet Ben. And when I did, it was an instant connection. Ben and I both share a long time experience in working with people, in building coalitions, in representing and being the voices for people whose voices aren't often heard. And we shared that immediately. I also have a master's in urban studies and urban planning, and we talked about that. We talked about the cities, and we talked about communities and the changes that we see in our communities right now with problems that they hadn't faced before. And it was a pretty nice way to be introduced to someone who shared your views.
So this is a race that there's quite a few Democrats in the race. You're the former Democratic Party chair. How are you going to maneuver the politics of this? I'm sure a lot of people are shocked, disappointed, amazed, excited. You're probably getting it from all different sides right now. What's the response been from the institutional Democrats? The response from institutional Democrats, I think, can best be described as, wow, it's so great. And one of the things that I heard, actually I talked to both of Maryland's former senators, Paul Sarbanes and Barbara Mikulski, and I asked them for advice. And what Barbara Mikulski said to me, which was really pretty terrific, was, Susie, you've been giving us advice all these years. And it is so great to, I don't think I have advice. I'll tell you what every campaign needs. And it is a mom. And a mom is message, organization, and money. She goes, and I use that, and I've said that to many a candidate over the years. And really, that's what I want to do. That's what every campaign is. We have to have the right message. We have to build an organization, and we have to make sure that we have the dollars to support that organization. What do you bring to the table, Susie, that's unique?
Oh, what I bring to the table is unique is that I've been doing this for 40 years. My experience goes back to college, where I worked in city council down the hall from Jerry Springer in the city of Cincinnati. It moved to Washington when I started graduate school. Another candidate became a United States Senator, and I was the first person on his staff, Howard Metzenbaum, who was a strong progressive, probably one of the first real leaders of the resistance back in the day. And then I've always done that. I've worked on the Hill back and forth. I've been involved running businesses. I worked for candidates, but more recently, in the last 10 years, I've done a grants newsletter for members of Congress, which is something that they send out to their constituents. It's making government more accessible to people and working with progressive leaders who do that. My background is pretty much of a mosaic, and with lots of different things coming in and out. But I think what's most important, Nomiki, is that throughout it all, it's been working on the issues that are most important to all of us. As chair of the Jewish Women International, I worked on domestic violence issues and was instrumental. Our group was instrumental in the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. When I moved many years ago, I worked in Maryland to make sure, after my mom died in a nursing home because she hadn't been screened for breast cancer, I worked with the then governor of Maryland and established a commission to look into the issue. And in a year later, on Mother's Day, we announced that women in Maryland nursing homes were going to be screened for breast cancer.
Wow.
And that men would also be screened for prostate cancer because it was something that was missed. Mm-hmm. It's connecting stories in real life to action. That's what I've always done, and that's what I'm always going to do.
So the landscape has changed quite a bit in the last year or two, since Trump, a little bit before Trump, during the presidential race. How much do you think in Maryland politics has shifted in response to this Trump presidency? I mean, we know that Larry Hogan is a Republican, but he's not a Trumpian Republican, or at least he wouldn't want to label himself as that. You guys might want to, but I think
count on it.
by fair assessment, he's not as close to Trump as, say, some of the other conservatives out there. How is the dynamic shifting on the ground in Maryland that gives you guys an opportunity?
Okay, well, Governor Hogan may be on paper popular. We've dealt with that before in Maryland. In 2006, we had a popular governor who lost re-election because he wasn't doing good things and he was taking us backwards. In 2010, we staged the biggest campaign ever, the strongest field operation, when that Republican former governor came back, and we defeated him with even higher margins. So we know the formula for it. Mm-hmm. Now, with Larry Hogan, what you see is someone who's very popular on paper, but if you look to see if people are actually going to vote for him, they're not looking that way. And they're not looking that way because he hasn't had the courage to lead. He's been an enabler. He has allowed the policies that have been coming from Washington to take root here in Maryland. But we probably have the greatest resistance ever. I know in my county, my congressman is Jamie Raskin. Mm-hmm. Jamie Raskin held a rally a couple weeks ago on the tax bill. Mm-hmm. 500 people came at 9:30 on a Saturday morning.
Wow.
And they came because they care. Mm-hmm. There are more people who are engaged in the political process today than ever before. People like me who went to the Women's March after standing in line for about 45 minutes just to get on the subway around the corner from my house to go downtown, and who came away from that going, it's different this year. We're not going to just do one thing. We were at a rally a couple weeks later after President Trump had issued his Muslim ban, and we were downtown, and we were at the outside of the White House, and you could see the signs that the protest is the new brunch. It was a Sunday brunch. It was the protest is the new brunch, and I have to tell you, what you feel and what you see right now is more people who want to make sure that, like in Maryland, our schools have gone from first to fifth. We have a rampant and really huge problem in opioid addiction that hasn't been addressed by this governor. We have gun violence issues as well, and we're going to stand up and we're going to say you can't do this, and push the governor of Maryland to stand up and say who he is and what he stands for, because he hasn't done it yet.
Let's take gun violence, for instance. I mean, you have Baltimore. I was just looking at some statistics the other day about gun violence in Baltimore, and it doesn't seem to be going down. Whereas nationally, it does seem to be going down in most big cities. It's not in Baltimore, as well as Chicago and a few other places like New Orleans. What is unique about your ticket? Why are you and Ben going to be able to address this?
I think it's it's exactly the reason that Ben is the best candidate at this time. Number one, at the NAACP, he was extremely involved in criminal justice issues and had made a difference in states and across the nation. He knows to his core that mass incarceration is a problem and that we can do better if we educate versus incarcerate. He uses this line, and this is one that's really important. People, when they're doing a budget, when they're looking at things, when people look at incarceration, they don't pay any attention to how much that costs. But if they're looking to educate someone, the first question is, how much is this going to cost? And he's going to do something about it. I'm going to do it with him. My experience is a little different. As chair of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, the first resolution that was passed when I was chair was about criminal justice. And over the last 2 years, we've developed a program across the country with our 125 Jewish Community Relations Councils to deal with and get involved in the issue of justice reform. We've sent toolkits. We've got things going. Ben has a plan. I'm going to be paying attention and learning more about it. But I have every confidence that what we're going to be doing is making sure that the people on the street understand that they have a friend in government and that they have a friend who's listening.
Last time I spoke with Ben on TYT, we interviewed him when he came out for his Medicare for All plan with the national nurses representatives. What do you think? Is this as popular as it seems nationally? I mean, do you think that Marylanders are looking for a Medicare for All plan? And have you heard other candidates kind of copycat that?
I haven't heard that much from the other candidates right now because I don't think they've come out with plans. What Ben is saying, and I think is really the case, is that regardless of what happens in Washington, we have to take care. Maryland has pretty good health care right now. But it needs to be insured because Medicaid, in particular, Medicaid cuts could hurt us the way they would hurt everyone else. One of the things that's sort of interesting is one of the calls I got last night was from another member of the House of Delegates, and he called and he said, I'm going to be introducing a Medicaid for All plan, and I've been working with the legislature, and we're going to sit down and talk. I think it's great that there are more people who are paying more attention. I went to, months before this came about, this summer I went to an event that our wonderful Senator Ben Cardin, hosted in the community in a town hall meeting about health care. And it became evident that day that this is one of the key issues before us right now. And I know that people want to make sure that people have coverage and that it is simplified and that we deal with the problems of the legislation as it stands, but also move forward with something broader and something that people can agree with here in Maryland. So
you have it's a packed primary right now. There's some progressives at the table as well as Ben, some more institutional Democrats, more centrist Democrats. But, with that being said, aside from the primary itself, moving forward, if you were to win the primary, how are you going to win over these Trump voters? I mean, you have the former president of the NAACP and the former, the head of the Democratic Party in Maryland. How are you going to appeal to those conservatives who might have some buyer's remorse with such strong progressive values?
Well, I think, in fact, in Maryland, we don't have to do anything to move to try to get the Trump voters because in Maryland, Hillary Clinton won overwhelmingly. And if anything, Bernie Sanders right now is the most popular political figure in our state. And so what we need to do is make sure that Democrats vote. Right. We need to make sure our plan and our hope is that the 125,000 Democrats that didn't vote in 2014 are going to come back to our party in 2018. And I think every indication is that that is not only possible, but that's probable. There is our local newspaper in Montgomery County is the Washington Post. Our local news is a lot about what's happening in Washington, and I think the educated voters in our state are looking at what we have and recognizing that Governor Hogan is not the answer. He's part of the problem.
So you mentioned that your Montgomery County is very close to Washington. I would be irresponsible not to mention that there is this beltway that exists in Maryland. I mean, part of the Washington dynamic, you take out, Annapolis and Baltimore and the rural areas, you have the Washington culture. And you have a Bernie Sanders surrogate running, and you supported Martin O'Malley. How are you going to be able to appeal to these beltway Democrats who might be a little bit reluctant?
Okay, I think we're going to appeal to them because, first of all, they know me. Mm-hmm. And Ben is a civil rights leader, has always been a civil rights leader. And I would say that our community cares more about that than anything else, than who we voted for in the last election. They care about, are we listening for them? Are we going to be supporting the progressive issues that matter? Are we going to be making sure that, like right now, our governor passed required our school systems in our state to change their schedule. What I'm hearing in Montgomery County, Maryland, is all he did was make the school a week shorter. And because we changed it to start after Labor Day, that created havoc in our for school boards, both in Montgomery County and Baltimore County, and teachers and parents alike are very upset about that. That's what our governor is known for right now. Not so good.
Right. So, Susie, I mean, you have a whole year ahead of you. What are some of the highlights of the election that you see coming forward? I mean, you've got a primary in, is it June? Is that the June primary?
June 26th, 2018.
Let's play this out. What happens in the next 8 months before the primary?
Well, obviously, we're going to be introducing ourselves across the state as a team. And we're going to be making sure that we touch every part of our state. For us, we're going to have a very strong field organization because we think that's what makes a difference. People can talk about the 50-state strategy, but I was there when it was created and implemented. And people can talk about winning elections in Maryland, but I was there with our campaign manager actually making sure that people came out and vote. We're going to build coalitions. We're going to talk to people. We're going to be making sure that we're not missing anything. And I think that anybody that knows either of us will know that we're not probably going to sleep much, and we're probably going to be on the road quite a bit. But what we're going to be doing is making sure that everything that we can do to bring up a new voice, a progressive voice, voices that have been underserved in our state, back to the table.
Before we go, I don't want to bury the lead here. You have a special guest coming to town next week. Who's coming? Our audience will be excited. I just know this.
Well, we're excited too. We're going to be seeing Bernie Sanders at the University of Maryland. At Notre Dame College in Baltimore next Thursday, I believe. Next Wednesday night. And I think it's at 7:30. People can go to benjealous.com. People should go to benjealous.com. People should join us, be part of this, be part of this movement that we're creating in Maryland, and we're really looking forward to a great time here.
Thank you, Susie. Congratulations. Susie Turnbull is running with Ben Jealous as Lieutenant Governor on the ticket in Maryland. Primaries in June, generals in November. Got a lot of campaigning to do from now until then, but if anybody can do it, you two can, because I do know both of you, and you both do work really hard and don't sleep. And that's why I'm surprised that you were able to get here right after your announcement. So thank you very much, Susie. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Namiki. Good to be with you.